let's start with the news of the moment. The news of the moment is that Kawhi Leonard will not play in Game 3. There's a lot to get to. We want to talk Warriors-Kings in Game 3, but I think this one probably supersedes it. Right? It probably does supersede it. Because, look, there's a bunch of different issues as to why. I mean, obviously, no Draymond Green. We could see the end of the Warriors, really the Warriors dynasty. I mean, there's a lot at stake in tonight's game. A lot. Bob Myers, not under contract after this year. Klay Thompson telling people he expects to get a max contract extension. Chris Broussard reporting lots of the bench players want to play more minutes, think they should be playing more minutes. Right? But look, tonight's Game 3 of the Warriors taking on the Kings is a gigantic game for not just the league, but especially the Warriors and the future of the Warriors. But because it's the news of the moment, you heard Dan Byer break in with it going back 10 minutes ago, that Kawhi Leonard won't play because he re-aggravated a sprained knee. Now, I'm just guessing, is that the knee where he tore the ACL or partial tear of the ACL going back a couple years ago in the playoffs? And here's what's interesting. Right? I think Kawhi Leonard, if not the best player in the league, he and KD are the two best players in the league. The guys I would most like. Yep. Would most like to have. Kawhi Leonard through, again, just 2 games in the playoffs. I mean, the numbers are obscene of what he's been able to do. Remember, he's 88% from the line, 54% from the field. And, from 3, he's shooting 60% from 3. Small sample size, obviously. Regular season, you look and you're like, whoa, hold on. Kawhi Leonard, only 24 points. Yeah, but he's playing 33 and a half minutes. And Kawhi only played 52 games, started 50 of them. Kawhi is not a ball-dominant guy, and he's as effective as a rebounder and playing defense as he is offensively. Obviously, this is just like you point out with Milwaukee. I think even more like they don't have the chance that Milwaukee had, that Memphis had. It's one thing to play without Kawhi and Paul George. The likelihood of them winning this game, not great. I will offer one thing as a possibility. Just a possibility. I'm going to float this at you. I have zero sources on it. This is completely and totally speculative. Okay, so let's say it's a really minor knee sprain. He ain't feeling right. And the doc's like, look, man, you'll be fine in Game 4, but you got to shut it down, not do anything for a couple of days, give it a little time. And the whole thing with the Suns is, look, the more those 4 play, the greater a chance that we have. Any thought that they're shutting him down, hoping to play the long game and play a 7-game series? Byer, would there be any legitimacy to that?
It's funny because when we get into the playoffs, as I'm making a short answer long, we always say, is this must win? I don't think that tonight is urgent, really for either team, to be honest. So that lends, I think, credence to the fact of what you're saying. I think that's what the Bucks thought. I think the Bucks thought last night that, you know what, we can probably get by. And even if we don't, we still think that we could probably beat the Heat, 4 times in a 5-game stretch if we needed. So Giannis sits out and played the long game. I wouldn't put it past the Clippers for thinking that way.
What do you think, Jay Stu?
It's weird. My thoughts went the other way. Like that load management. The downside of load management, and the downside of minimizing minutes means when you do overexert yourself and play a lot of minutes like you did in Game 2, then this would be the downside of load management, that his body isn't used to that kind of work for that many minutes. So that's where my mind went with this injury. That
this is the downside to it?
Correct.
I thought this is so. this is what I thought. I was walking around during the break, and I think better sometimes when I walk. And I was walking around, and I thought to myself, and it's, does load management actually help? And maybe this kind of plays into what you're saying, where because you're not playing, and this is, football. I had this discussion with a very high level college football coach, which is we hit less, and yet there's way more injuries now than there ever used to be. And his stance was, look, you have to build up a tolerance to the contact. And that's why he believes that contact causes a lot more injuries now. And there's a lot more soft tissue injuries as well, because we play so much less. So you go from 0 to 100. That kind of would be your point as well in basketball, right? My point would be whether you play a lot or don't play a lot. I don't know. I would love to see the tracking as to whether or not injuries still take place at the same rate. That there really isn't a true difference. And maybe not that great a difference in performance either. So, yeah, there's an interesting part to the load management thing.
There's also just the fact of is that, we think this way with Anthony Davis, and maybe it's the same thing with Kawhi. They're just always hurt.
Yeah. That's the part I don't that's the part I don't want to admit. Right? Yeah. Because I really like Kawhi, and I really want to defend him, and I understood he's coming off a major knee injury. And he felt like he wasn't being treated properly. He was in San Antonio, and he's always delivered in the playoffs when he's played, and yada, yada. But there is the possibility of he's just one of those always hurt guys, right? And as much as you go, well, I don't know here. It's the same injury, just re-aggravating it, scaring himself. Like, look, everyone knows in your friend group, you have the always in love guy. You have the always bitter guy. You have the always want to fight guy. In basketball and football and baseball, it's the same. You have the always injured guy. You have the guy who can't get along with the coach, right? The guy who's always in his own head. The guy who has no head on his shoulders, right? Just goes out there and plays total meatball, whatever. Like all of these things do. And there is the guy that's always hurt. Like, oh, he's always hurt. I played with a guy at Oklahoma State. He was there half of my first year, then he transferred out. And good dude. His name's Estelle Laster. And Estelle he had the ability he got hurt in every practice we ever had. And it wasn't BS. Like, I think some of it was pain tolerance, but some of it was just, he was really light. Like, he was probably 6'2", like 165. And, he'd go up to dunk on somebody, and he was crazy athletic. And he'd get bumped and fall kind of like awkwardly. And man, Estelle's down. And I'm telling you, it felt like he got hurt all the time. All the time. Like, man, Estelle's hurt again. My favorite conditioning story is at Oklahoma State, we used to have 5-at-5s. So when you get in trouble, you do something wrong, skip a class, whatever, you get a knock at the door, 5 a.m, they pick you up, they put you in one of the university vans, they put 0 on the odometer, they drive you 5 miles outside of town, they'd stop the car, they'd open the van door, you'd get out, and they'd follow you, and you'd run back to the training room. 5 miles, 5 a.m. And they would keep kind of the pace about right, because they're like following behind you, but they weren't going like 1 mile an hour. So it was a pretty decent little pace. And the first time I ever did it, and I remember we all went to, somebody had like a party during a football bye weekend, and there was like a fight at the party. And because we were at the party and we shouldn't have been, and they went and this is a real thing, they used to check our dorm rooms. If you've even had an apartment off campus, because it was their money buying you and you're paying your rent, their deal was like, hey, if you live off campus, that's fine, we get a key. And they would come and they would check for booze and drugs and whatever. And they found we were having a party for one of my roommates was turning 21, and they're like, excessive amount of booze, plus you're at the party that you shouldn't have been. There's a fight involved. You guys shouldn't be around there. It was way too late, blah, blah. 5-at-5. Like, what? So sure enough, 5 a.m, and you get up, you put on your running shoes, you go out there, you got your gray sweats on, you're running, you're mumbling, you're MFing the coaches up and down. And like 2 miles in, Estelle Laster, sure enough, there's like one pothole. He steps in it, rolls his ankle. Ah! They pick him up in the van. They take him back to the training room. They got him on ice. Later that night, like we're playing It's still in the preseason, so we're like playing. We lift and play pickup. So we're playing pickup, and Estelle wasn't playing, but he's over there shooting. He looks fine. Like rolled his ankle, scared himself. We're like, man, he got out of it. No. Next day, 5 a.m, they pick him up. They take him to the exact spot where he rolled his ankle. He had to run back in. So anyway, in talking about the Clippers, like obviously, if Kawhi doesn't play the rest of the series, this thing's over. And what a gift that would be to the Suns to be able to rest some of their guys. How many shots does Russell Westbrook take tonight? Over under?
21.
21. Took 19 the first game. What did he take the second game? He took less the second game, but he made a bunch of them. I'm going to go over 21.
Okay.
Over 21. There'll be some ball dominance.
You know who I think is the poster child for always injured, but it's such a shame that he was injured? Bob Sanders, former Iowa Hawkeye.
Good call.
Colt safety.
Yep.
When Bob Sanders played for the Colts, they were a completely different team. But he would only play in, like 8 games a year. He to me is the one that just sticks out of like.
Yep. He was the always hurt guy. Now, part of it is he was like 5'11", probably 210 pounds, and you're throwing your body into gigantic men coming at full speed, and that's probably his body wasn't built to stand up to it. But yeah, always hurt guy. Always hurt guy.